apparently there's a line in this movie that I'm going to paraphrase it, but it's basically something along the lines of like, and that's when she died and I never saw her again.
Butterscotch
Shenanigans. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 500. Of Coffee with Butterscotch, the game dev comedy podcast of Butterscotch Shenanigans. I'm Seth, and I'm the games programmer.
I'm Adam, the miscellaneous programmer.
I'm Sam, and I'm the artiste.
And this is a show where we talk about life, business, and working in the games industry. Today's December 20th, 22x4. And before we get started, we have a warning. There's going to be profanity in this show. And we'd also like to thank our recurring supporters over at moneygrab.bscotch.net. Thank you so much for your monthly donations to help keep the podcast going. So this episode's coming out on January 1st, 2025. We were just talking about, we're coming up on the decade of podcasting. Not quite there yet. 500 feels like it should be, but, years are 52 weeks long-ish, right? So we're still a couple of months out from
It is the funny thing about the numbers we like to celebrate are, things with an end of the zero,
They look good.
But practically speaking, they almost never line up with anything actually interesting or useful because the world doesn't work in tens, like nothing about it does. But
I mean, even like a year isn't actually 365 days. That's why every now and then we just throw an extra day in there, just to recalibrate the calendar. So since this is the first episode of the new year, we have a tradition in our podcast where we try to make some predictions about what we think is going to happen this year. And then we give the year a name. Mm-hmm. Okay. So last year was 22x4, which had a lot of possible interpretations, none of which I can remember other than something about wood or boards. I don't know.
It was about nailing it, I think. That was what
it was nailing it. Yeah. Which I feel like we did nail it. We nailed a lot of things. In 2024.
It was a vague it. So we certainly nailed something.
An indiscriminate it. Just whatever you're going to be nailing, just fucking go for it. Just nail it.
Yep.
So we'll get into that toward the latter half of the episode. So first, let's kind of talk about what do we think is coming in 2025. So first, we'll talk a little bit about the industry at large. Okay, the games industry. Things have been suboptimal.
Things have been bad.
Very bad. Yeah, there's been
infinite layoffs. A lot of layoffs. A lot of this has to do with especially larger studios or larger companies that have been acquired by even larger companies. A lot of their operations revolve around borrowing money. Mm-hmm. And that means they are very much subject to things like interest rates that are present in the banking side of things. Those have been not great over the past couple of years. And there was a time where it was like the federal interest rate was like 0%. So companies could just get real cheap loans for pretty much everything. So they did. And they just hired 1 trillion people. And over the past couple of years, we've kind of seen the flip side of that, which is the interest rates went back up. Those companies started to have to tighten their belts because they couldn't handle all this debt, and they just fired everybody. Mm-hmm. Or you have a lot of studios that got acquired, and then it's like, oh yeah, the parent company is tightening its metaphorical belt.
Yeah,
let's cut some dead weight, just shut down this studio and that studio.
Well, and of course, we're all of us to some extent are at the whims of the giants, even if it's not because they own us literally, right? But so we're also seeing a lot of studio closures because it used to be easier to get publisher money. It used to be easier to get a game out. It used to be easier to do all kinds of things. But it's gotten, the thing about the entertainment industry in general, games specifically, is that it's a hit-driven, random sort of thing. And we're at the whims of whether or not just the game happens to work out when it finally comes out. It's a high investment, high risk kind of a thing. And everything is kind of aligned right now to make those risks just extra unlikely to pay off. And we're really seeing the consequences of that.
Yeah, I think you have sort of a perfect storm of a combination of all of the algorithmic tightening from the more like organic media stuff that we used to work in the past couple of years. So all of your YouTube stuff, basically TikTok stuff, whatever, where it's harder and harder to put out something new now, right? and have people like use those platforms as a discovery mechanism for that thing. It's great if you're already the thing that is popular, but it's
This
harder.
is why we're making a sequel. Like if the word Crashlands is already present in the YouTube algorithm and all over the place, then that just gives us that little bit of extra edge. Where if we release Crashlands 2, then it's more likely that the algorithm gods, will smile upon us and show our game to people.
So I think as a result of that, and then the combination of all these studio closures, even from last year, that I think new games that you're getting over this next year, a lot of the new games are just going to be kind of what we've seen, frankly, this last year, which is like a lot more sequels, a lot more stuff that's like more of what you liked before, because every force has been shaping all of the industry, like all of the studios, to have to like kind of try to reduce risk as much as possible, because everything's gotten a little more spiky, right? But I think paired with that, so interest rates go up when by the federal bank in the U.S. at least when inflation goes up. So with because they're basically they do that to try to make it harder to borrow money, because when people borrow a lot of money, that creates inflation, and if people stop borrowing money, it is deflationary, right? So it's like they try to slow down the economy by jacking up interest rates so that we can kind of throttle things back. And so while the inflation rate has gotten sort of more under control this last year or so, given a variety of policies.
It's been pretty good, actually.
But given a variety of policies that the incumbent president has been floating, it's highly likely that will not continue to be the case.
The upcoming president.
Which would mean that sometime within the next 6 months or so, you probably would expect another interest rate hike or something as damage control begins. So that's kind of one of those like that. It's not going to get easier to get money, I guess, basically, right? Yeah. From a worldwide stage standpoint. So I think that unfortunately it's kind of a compounding of the same shit industry wide. It doesn't look particularly sunny.
It's going to be a little bit of a rocky time coming up,
and chaotic in all likelihood, because we're gonna have a team of maniacs at the wheel. So makes it hard to predict, except that it's probably generally not good, but also unpredictable is not helpful if you're trying to run a business in any industry. Yeah,
we're kind of going back into the mode that we were in from 2016 to 2020, which is anytime you see a news of like the federal government today did this, you're like, oh, I know that's bad. Like I know, like whatever it was, it's not going to be good for me. So we're just gonna have, we're coming into the start of 4 years of that. And a lot of those decisions are going to preferentially benefit extremely large companies at the expense of basically everybody else. So small studios, publishers, people want to, just regular people, which also means like if people are more squeezed, that does suppress the sales of video games as well.
However, I will say, I'll put a plug in for a pandemic sequel also, because bird flu seems to be pretty close to
bring it back.
It's been making a bunch of jumps actually. So it's kind of a question of like, is it going to do it? Is it going to do it? So we'll see if we get another pandemic, because that was great for the games industry. You know what I mean? In terms of just sales.
That's true.
So
and the home gym industry.
Yeah.
It was so hard to buy dumbbells at that time.
It was.
So that's going to be happening. We also have a continuation of all of the AI stuff. So a lot of the hype has died down around AI because people have realized the limitations of what the current set of AI tools that exist. Realized limitations of those. Like OpenAI released Sora, which was their video thing that they previewed back in like May or something like that. And it's been absolutely hilarious watching people trying to make semi-coherent 10-second video clips with this thing. And oh my God, what a piece of shit. It feels like everybody's like trying, it's like a square peg round hole problem. Like everybody's trying to use this like one type of AI tool that we have, which is this kind of like these transformers, to try to like make video games, make videos, make books, whatever. And it just isn't good.
It's certainly doing something, but
it's making doing the world worse very effectively.
Certainly. One thing that's definitely going to happen though, and already is happening, is certain companies or individuals are foregoing hiring artists or hiring voice actors or whatever in exchange for just using these AI tools to generate images for things. So like Call of Duty got called out by their community because they used a bunch of AI art for various promotional materials and stuff.
The nice six-fingered Santa zombie.
Six-fingered Santa zombie.
Classic.
And that Project Zomboid just got thrashed by their community because they had some like new loading screens in their game that were AI art. And the funny thing is, like, it's the same problem as always, which is people were looking at it and they're like, that's not really like what this character's supposed to look like. And also like the zombie in the background does not look like the zombies from the game. And like nothing about, again, it's like whenever you type in whenever you type in a prompt, you get something in the ballpark of what you wanted, but you never get what you wanted. And so people can see that where they're like, what like, this doesn't fit with what the game is. So there's going to be a lot of that, I think, kind of increasing because it's just so tempting. I could just for like pennies, I could get an image. All I need is an image. Like, why should I hire an artist for $1,000 to make this?
Well, I think it's even outside of like having to hire, like because you look at something like fucking Ubisoft or one of these giant companies, right? When a company like that does this sort of thing, it isn't even necessarily if they're doing it like big scale. It's because they're trying to save money and do that kind of stuff, right? But if they do it on like a particular item, it's because somebody didn't want to go through the bureaucracy of like, how do I get an artist to like,
how do I request an artist to
we
make
already
this
got
thing?
him, right? But I have to get him. I have to like pass them a bunch of info. I have to do feedback.
Self-service, can I just like
exactly? And there's like that's the one angle of it that I'm like, I get the motivation for it. I think everything about it is so bad that we shouldn't be doing anyway, but I get it, which is the one where you're just like, I just want to do this myself.
I understand the motivation.
I can get behind that one. Yeah.
Yeah. The motivation is very clear. It's easy. It's like, it would be, if you could just generate exactly a thing that's with a fucking wave of a wand, that's what you wanted.
It's fucking rad.
Of course. Cool. But like, it's just not.
That's not where we're at.
So we're at.
But so I think, over this year, we're going to see a lot more hype about AI models that don't do shit. We're going to see a lot of companies trying to, or maybe not even trying to, but it's just going to happen. Like they're going to be having various bits of AI generated stuff just creeping in at the corners of all these different things.
I think we're going to still be in the fucking around phase for this AI stuff. And I think we're already starting to, we're going to see a lot more of the finding out stuff. As people like double down on their investments and do this kind of stuff, we're going to start seeing a little bit of like collapse, I think, in 2025. But I think this year is still going to be mostly fucking around. Yeah, is my prediction.
And my assumption here, because like in the long term, I'm a big believer in the potential of AI. But what we have right now is a very early, like primitive version of it. That is not good for many things at all. And I think you're right. I think there's going to be a general, like, I think there already is kind of a general like collapse in public sentiment toward it.
The most likely outcome if somebody knows that a company is using AI is brand damage, right?
Yeah.
And that's already true. So that's the finding out we're going to start having next year.
I thought you said brain damage for a moment, and I was like, yes.
It's brand damage because it takes away trust in a particular way, but especially in the sectors that we operate in entertainment and media, right? Because that's where it's supposed to be.
But there's also like I think there's been a really hard shift from optimism towards cynicism.
Yes.
About AI because these companies who are marketing, you can tell like they put together these demos and they show this thing and then like it'll be coming soon, and then it comes in 10 months and it doesn't fucking work, right? Like this just happens over and over and over again. Or they'll be like, this is the smartest model yet, right? And then people benchmark it and it's dumb as a box of rocks, right? So it's like, okay.
I think this is the tech industry more broadly in general, which
people are just getting really exhausted from the just blatant lies.
Yeah, it's
like framed as marketing. It's like, look at this cool thing we made.
Well, and how everything in the tech space is presented as like this huge like global benefit when the reality has been that the constant continued destruction of everything that we think is important. And that disconnect is like it feels like the disconnect is like at its peak right now of like the amount of awareness people have for like, what are you guys doing? You fucking lunatics. Like, what are you doing with these claims? Like your complete inability to understand what you're doing, the fact that you're lying, even like the consequences of your actions.
I think there'll just be more. I guess you could get more of the zeitgeist about like a little bit more of the like fuck the man vibes. Feels like it's certainly here.
Yeah.
That's going to be ramping up a lot this year.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about the Luigi Mangione United Healthcare thing. Most have much to say about it. That would be good, but that like that event I think was a big catalyst for people starting to generate some kind of class consciousness about like understanding what's really going on and sort of like who's actually benefiting from the things around them. And I think that's going to be accelerating a lot over this year and the coming years. So as part of that too, like one of the things that's always the case with publicly traded companies is they're always trying to absorb everything that exists, right? So let's talk about Xbox, okay?
Yeah.
So Microsoft they're trying something. Which is they're like, everything's an Xbox. Your phone is an Xbox. Your computer's an Xbox. Your Xbox is an Xbox. By that, I mean, they're trying to find ways to make it so that you can play Xbox games on just every single type of device. So one of the interesting things about that is like, it's kind of confusing because of the directionality of it, because people understand Xbox as a
physical
console.
object. Yes.
It's an object that sits under your TV, right? People don't understand Xbox as a software platform or a store, right? Like you have an Xbox, same way as you have a Nintendo Switch, right? So I think Microsoft is doing some cool stuff, and they're trying to like expand in interesting ways, but because they're doing that Microsoft thing where they make everything really fucking confusing for no reason, right? That I think it's going to be hard for them to get much traction from this just because it's just hard to explain to people like what you're talking about. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, you can play Xbox on your Android phone. What do you mean?
It sounds like a non-starter. Sounds like it's a stroke. You know what I mean? Because like what?
Yeah,
you should get those together.
It's
download
also
the Xbox app, but I don't have an Xbox. You don't need an Xbox to play Xbox.
It's a solution in search of a problem, which we keep seeing in the space, which is the market, and kudos to them for like trying to change the shape of the market, because I think more of that is a good thing, net positive. But
I would say that for them, the problem is that they don't get all the money.
Yeah,
they're trying to figure out how can we have all of it.
There's that, but I think that like the interesting part of it though is like you're saying with like Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, whatever its current thing is, Switch currently, but and then PC, like each one of those is a separate market. They're like truly separate markets, and we know this because we've tried to cross those markets, and like it's remarkable how hard it is to cross them in the first place, but also how little overlap they have. Like people
and they themselves work very hard to prevent us from crossing them.
Yeah, which is part of the problem is that I think that's the one thing about it that I kind of respect at least a little bit is like trying to erase that a bit. I think that's good for us long term. Not if they become the one thing everywhere, but trying to erase the boundaries between things a bit I think is good.
Well, they're trying to erase the boundaries between hardware.
Yes.
Yeah. They'll still have very strong boundaries between platforms, right? So like like for example, I would bet if let's say hypothetically you can make Android Xbox games or something. I don't fucking know how this works, right?
But like you can play some games because they're using the cloud. This is basically this has been their big gambit the whole time with the Game Pass or whatever else is you get a big subscriber base, so you have Game Pass, and then you make it so that the games are playable across all the things by using the cloud. So you can have just an Xbox controller.
You're playing with a delay on 5G or something.
Yeah. And that's, which is, again, it is a cool dream, right? The question is, whose dream is it? Is it a company's dream or a player's dream? And I think that's where you get that little bit of like, does anybody want this? I don't know.
Yeah. It's a Stadia 2.0.
Potentially. Yeah.
And ironically, the head of Stadia was Phil Spencer from Xbox, so
nice.
Right. Yeah. So
that's crazy.
I believe so. That. Yeah. That's who they brought in to run the thing. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it's just kind of, it's more the same of like you're saying, a company with a problem, and their problem is they want more money.
Yeah.
And that's the only problem. It's not a consumer facing problem. It's not like players want something. It's the company wants something, and they're doing all kinds of wild shit to try to figure out how to capture more of the market, right?
Yeah. Well, I think there is. There is a real problem that players face, which is they want to be able to buy a game, have access to a game, and have that transaction happen once, and then however they want to play that thing.
But I would argue that that's not a real problem because, for example, like if I buy a game on Steam, I feel like I have this game now, right? I bought it where I want to play it, and like I do have an Xbox, right? If I wanted to play it on the Xbox, I would have bought it there. You know, I buy it once where I want to play it,
and that to me, that's the main thing about the markets being really separate, right? And we saw with original Crashlands and also other titles that like there is significant crossplay when you make that be an option, right? But
you gotta fight everybody to make it an option.
You gotta fight everybody to get there, but then there's an extra hurdle, which is that people have to buy the game twice, you know, or whatever, right? So it's sort of suppressed compared to what it probably otherwise would be. But it is still the case that the vast majority of players, though, have a preferred platform, or like kind of what you're saying, for a given game,
a preferred context
that they want to play it in. And so, like
you're not going to play Call of Duty on my phone. No, no, I don't. If I wanted to play it, I'd play it on PC because if I'm playing a shooter, I want to play it with keyboard and mouse because that's my preferred method. And the fact that it would be playable through the cloud on my phone doesn't do anything.
To me, that's the main thing. Is us being a cross-platform studio means something actually, which is not that we make a game however the fuck we want and then try to figure out how to get it on the platforms, right? It means we design the game around the idea that form factor matters. Like form factor impacts the experience of the game.
Yeah, and even if you're like, hey, listen, you got to have a Bluetooth controller for the Xbox app to work. So like you're still going to have a controller. That's the screen. The screen is fucking tiny. Okay. Things change when the screen gets fucking tiny.
Yeah. And then you need some way to like mount your phone onto something so that it's not like flat on a tabletop and you're like breaking your neck.
That's a player problem that you let them deal with like orthopedics issues resulting from that. You know, that's like whatever.
Yeah, but that's the thing is like, it doesn't, to me, the problem isn't solved by saying like, oh, we just need to erase the sort of the hardware boundary, right? Because the problem is in game design. And the game, that's where the problem is first. The game has to make sense.
If you erase the hardware boundary, the games don't erase the hardware boundary.
They still have it.
Right?
And so unless also Microsoft goes, and of course they own every studio in the universe now. So if they also go from top down, they're like, hey, every game we're working on now has to also be designed for every form factor. So for touch, controller, keyboard, and mouse. If they did that, then I would be like, okay, yeah, now this dream of like go full cross-platform with Xbox.
Now you're shooting your toes just right off your feet because guess what? You can't make certain games that are extremely popular in certain contexts, right?
Yeah.
Certain console games are extremely popular. You cannot make them in a way that makes any fucking sense to be played on a tiny phone.
Form factors are constraining. That's just a fact, right? And so we, as a cross-platform studio, operate within those constraints very much on purpose. But that means that we're not doing some things that we would do if we were just on PC, right? Because we
like World of Warcraft is owned by Microsoft now.
Yeah.
Yep.
Try to play that shit on a phone.
Yeah.
You know,
I
have seen people who like created add-ons and mods and like some collection of things to like play WoW like on an iPad through some hacky means or something like that. But calling it playing WoW is like a very loose way of talking about it.
I want to get to the other platform in the room here though, because I think what's weird about it is there's Xbox doing this thing, Xbox everywhere, and it feels like kind of I don't know, kind of a bit of a miss in some way for some reason. Yeah. But then you got Steam with their Steam Decks. Yeah, kind of doing, I mean, in some ways the same thing.
So Steam is traveling the other direction. So Steam started as a software platform on PC only, right? And it's just it's a place where you play your games. That's it. So you don't have a Steam, right? Yeah. You have a Steam account, but you don't have a Steam in
and
your
most
living
importantly,
room.
A Steam library.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you got hundreds of games in there from the past 2 decades or whatever, if you've been an avid Steam user for a long time.
Or if you bought a single Humble Bundle.
Yep. You bought a Humble Bundle one time, and now you'll have a bunch of games you never heard of and will never play.
Yep.
And so Valve was kind of working the other direction where they're like, okay, people have this Steam library, and they released the Steam Deck was like a year and a half ago or something like that, which did very well. And I've got one. It's a cool gadget. I wish the resolution was higher. It's 720p, so
it's a low res monitor.
Yeah, it's a bit rough.
Which I think is like a Switch has, right? It's the same as a
it's about the same as a Switch, I think. Yeah. And so like the fidelity of a lot of games kind of gets diminished, but you know, it's a cool first generation handheld thing.
And importantly,
play tons of Steam games just on the go.
Importantly, it just taps into whatever your fucking library is. So again, contextually, you can just say like, I already have this game. I'm just gonna go play it on my Steam Deck now because I don't have to I'm not making decisions about that. Right?
And it doesn't quite run into the mobile problem of size. It's close because it's a small screen, but it's not as small as a phone screen still. Because I think once you get as small as a phone screen, you're not playing PC games. You can't play PC games really.
There's a variability problem with the phones, which is like, you don't know. Yeah. Is someone on like a fucking, I don't know, Samsung triple folding?
Well, I mean, it's all of that, but I think to me, the main thing is really just how big stuff is, you know, like it's just
and integrated
too
controls.
Small.
Integrated controls, which is huge, right? So you have Steam going the opposite direction. Software, and any player already has a library, and now with the Steam Deck, they're making this really interesting inroad, right? In kind of into the Switch's territory, or / where the Xbox seems like it's trying to go, but what feels like a way more successful format, right? Which is like I don't know exactly why, because it's kind of the same shit, but also I think because they're moving into hardware.
Well, I think it's also because Steam is a cloud first platform from a library standpoint. Because if you think of like Xbox and PlayStation and stuff, right? You historically bought physical media, right? So you didn't build up a library, but also each new generation kind of threw away, killed the previous one. And so with Steam, like how many fucking games you guys have with Steam, right? I've got at least 400.
A sick amount, yes.
Yeah, like a huge number of games, right? That I've accumulated over 20 years because I've been around since day one on Steam, right? So I've spent 20 years building a library of games that most of which I could still play if I wanted to. Like there's some compatibility issues sometimes for the old shit, right? But I could still basically play it with like in the past, I've owned a PlayStation 2 for a brief period of time. I've got some physical discs somewhere,
yep.
Right? That's not a library. I can't use them, I don't think, on like a PS5, probably. But even if I could, once you go cross-platform, how am I going to fucking play my disc of my PS2 game on my phone, you know?
Well,
like
and the irony, too, is like there was a time in the early 2010s when I think it was the Xbox One was coming out where Microsoft announced, and they're like, we want to get rid of physical media. Mm-hmm. We want to just be like, you buy games on the Xbox store and then you just have them. And the player base just went into an absolute outrage because they were like...
It blows up the used games market. Which is true.
It blows up the used games market. But interestingly, like
it also means that people can just take your game away, right? At the point.
Yeah. But of course, like what people were pissed off about with Xbox was the entire selling point of Steam, right? Which again is part of what it's digital and you don't need discs.
But again, these are separate markets. It's not the same people who would be pissed off, right? Yeah. The Steam users who have been building their libraries over this time, like myself, right? As you're saying, very intentionally, we're just like, fuck yeah, I never have to think about this again, right?
Yep,
I can just go, I can buy a game and I've just got it. Wherever I go, I just download Steam again and I've got access to my games. Never think about it again.
I think what it is it's a misstep by Microsoft in terms of basically alienating what the audience actually wants, right? Who the people are actually powering that like core Xbox service in a bid to broaden into a different audience entirely, right? I don't know that that's going to work. It seems like it might just sort of punch the Xbox situation, like the actual physical Xbox situation, a little hard and
it just feels
down there.
It feels messy, you know, like it just feels
messy. Well, I think what it is the difference between the approach of a publicly traded company versus a private one, right? Because Microsoft has like things have to happen fast and the line has to go up.
Yeah.
Right. Like
nobody knows what the line looks like at Steam, right? They're just
like Xbox has to keep making more and more profit as like a brand, like as a profit center. Mm-hmm. When I was saying Xbox, I'm talking about like just the console. Again, that's why it's confusing, right? Not just the device, but like the game side of Microsoft. And so it has to keep expanding as fast as possible so that, Q4 of 2025 has more profit than Q4 of 2024, which means when it comes to like being thoughtful and methodical and experimental with stuff, they can't do it very well. Right? Like they've got to like move as fast as possible and just grow as fast as possible.
Right. Versus like Valve tried some hardware shit years ago.
Oh yeah, there was the Steam Link for a while. They had the Steam controller, which was a separate controller.
And they sold those Steam machines for a bit. Yeah, which were like
they tried a bunch of stuff. And then they're like, okay, so we did that. That
didn't quite work.
Some things about it worked, some things didn't. All right, we'll just kill that.
Right, but you don't have to
because we don't have shareholders.
You don't have to do a whole fucking marketing campaign about this like interesting idea that you're trying to like interesting.
They don't have to convince somebody the thing they did worked when it didn't, right? They don't.
Yeah, they can just they can sit back, just keep raking in money from all the game sales that are just currently happening without any pressure of we have to keep making more of it, right? Like they can just kind of hoard money and then be like, okay, let's try something interesting that we think our customers will really like, right?
Or that we want them to like they did with their VR push, right? They were like, we think we can create this market that doesn't exist, and they couldn't because nobody can, right? But they could do an honest push, and it didn't matter that it failed to them. Right?
Yeah, because their stock price didn't go down because they don't have one of those.
Well, so that way, like they've been successful in that regard. Like there is a little VR market on Steam.
Yeah, that's true. It's not that they were unsuccessful. It's just that
they were successful in it.
They didn't
scale doesn't have to be
the
$100
new market.
billion. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. So my understanding though is that they're basically they're moving more in the realm of like kind of like open sourcing SteamOS in a manner of speaking.
That's what gets interesting. Yeah, it's like saying what we've done with this Steam Deck. We're providing the OS to
other hardware makers.
Yeah.
So other hardware makers can make their own versions of something
mobile.
like a Steam Deck.
Yeah.
So when I was like, oh man, I wish it had a bigger screen and blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, well, there might be somebody who makes like a crazy powerful Steam Deck type of a thing.
The goal is guaranteed to happen next year because it's been successful.
There's already the Asus ROG, right? Which I'm not sure if that's powered by a Steam Deck or not, but it's meant to be used as a Steam Deck.
Be like a Steam Deck, yeah. And so it's like, okay, this is the track we're on where they're like diversifying the hardware side of things while maintaining the software side, right? Mm-hmm. And I think in Microsoft's case, they're trying to retain full ownership and control over all aspects of it. Like they've got their Xbox, nobody else can make an Xbox device, right? Mm-hmm. They've got their Xbox software, they monolithically control that side of things as well. And so they're just kind of doing stuff just to try to like capture more market. And Steam is over here just kind of slow burn, slow and steady wins the race kind of thing. So I think it's going to be a good year for
it feels like Steam is positioned very well for this year. I think
ultimately I think it comes down to the fucking library. I think there's
of course, yeah.
There's nothing you can do to upset the cart when you've got people who spent their whole adult lives basically, right? Or new people coming into games, but either way, people who are accumulating their library they're not going somewhere else. And I think kind of an interesting consequence of the subscription services sort of shift that Xbox is doing with Game Pass and that you see on mobile, right? Is that people aren't developing libraries, right?
Yeah.
Because you play the game while it's available and then it's gone and it never feels like it's yours, right? And so
I'd say the benefit is also kind of the curse in that regard, which is like you as the portfolio manager on it, you have to keep on cycling new games in, right? You have to, because otherwise people will stop subscribing. But on the player side, so basically there's a constant cost to it, right? On the portfolio manager side versus like it doesn't cost Steam anything because you have 2,000 games in your library still. Do you know what I mean? Like,
if you're not subscribed to Steam.
Because I use Steam as my primary platform because then I've got my library. That's where all my stuff is, right? Mm-hmm. If I have the option of buying it one place or the other, I'm going to buy it on Steam. And now, I don't have any consoles anymore, but I wouldn't need them anyway because I'll just plug my Steam Deck into my TV and go play it there.
I think it's like I've enjoyed Game Pass. I've enjoyed Game Pass a lot on playing on.
Yeah, but Game Pass is cool. But Game Pass, you can just if you pull the plug, like you can stop paying for it. Now all of your games are gone.
Yeah. Right? I understand what you're saying. You'd like the ability of them to use that in a way.
Yeah, they can't leverage it.
They can't leverage it without continuing to pay a shitload of money to do it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
You don't get to accumulate something that is just sort of like yours that now you're like, oh, I'm not going to leave that behind. because I stopped paying for Xbox Game Pass because I wasn't using it, and it didn't matter because I didn't leave anything behind because I was like, if I want those games again, I guess I'll just, whatever games are there, I'll just pay for it at the time. But the rest aren't mine anyway, so they would be gone whether I paid for this or not. Like it doesn't change anything.
That's interesting.
It just kind of doesn't matter. So yeah, I think Steam, you can't overtake Steam because of the history and because of the core design of the system. It's always been you collect a library in the cloud without any physical media.
It's like we talked about Levelhead in the last episode, right? Like the longer time goes, the more valuable it is. Like the more, so it's fine. Like it just keeps growing. The games available on Steam keep growing. Everything, like the longer you spend on Steam, the more you have this permanent library of stuff that you can play with. Well,
what about the mobile side? So I guess Switch 2 is probably coming out, right, this year or something?
Yep. As far as we know, it's just like a better Switch, probably backwards compatible. So that's good.
My guess is just as bad for indies. Because I think unlike original Switch, where there was a blue skies kind of period where there weren't any games on it yet because it wasn't backwards compatible with prior consoles, right? Then at that time, if you got a game out on Switch as an indie, you could do pretty well. Those days are long gone. You can't really do well on Switch. But Switch 2, I can't imagine that they're...
It's just probably not worth it to...
Well, I can't imagine...
They're not doing an eShop or anything. That's the thing that would matter for us.
Yeah, they're not going to kick out your library stuff. So if it's basically the same store with the same games, all that kind of stuff, then there's not going to be a blue skies moment for indies.
That's true, actually. Yeah, that's a good point.
So my bet is
Nintendo is vertically integrated. So like they're always going to they're going to push their own first party content first, right? So like you're going to compete with the next Luigi game, the next Pokemon, the next Mario Galaxy, whatever.
By compete, you mean you'll be a footnote in however the eShop is shaped because they
as in your game won't get featured and Nintendo's games will get featured.
Yeah, unlike all the other stores, Nintendo is to this day never bothered trying to solve the discoverability problem because they're like, we only care if our games are discovered and we can just put them at the top, right? So that's going to continue, which means like for me, as far as I'm concerned, from a indie game studio standpoint, Switch 2, like it doesn't actually do anything for us because like I can't see us putting anything on it because it can't.
It's a Nintendo platform for Nintendo games.
We don't go there at launch, but if the game does super duper well, that you could basically guarantee that people are going to know about it, buy it, then
because it is the case that like there are still some success stories for indies on Switch, but they're pretty rare. And honestly, every time I've seen any details, they don't sound that successful.
And they tend to be from the first couple of years of the Switch. And
the real success stories are from the first few years. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But even today, I still see indies talking about how like, Switch is actually our best platform, or whatever. And like, if you look into details, you're like, it's actually because they didn't do that well on other platforms, right?
Right.
Not necessarily because it actually did well. Yeah, exactly.
What about mobile stuff? What's the Butterscotch Stradamus mobile?
So I bet his mobile looks exactly the same this year.
It's pretty static, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's been a pretty static market. There's always some kind of new thing that Apple tries to push.
Yes.
Android doesn't really have anything like that because Android is an OS and it's hardware agnostic. There's like 16,000 different Android devices, right? Some of them fold in half. Some of them have controllers on them, whatever. But because it's so diversified, then everybody collapses down onto the same form factor, which is just a wide screen with touch inputs, right? Yeah. And so even from like a business model perspective, like we are seeing Apple, they lag behind Android, which is funny to say, but like Apple lags behind Android in a lot of features. So for example, like one of their most recent iOS updates was like, you can rearrange the icons on your home screen. It's like, all right, well, like that's always been a thing that Android has had. And so something I would like to see that I don't think we will, but I'd like to see some updates to the App Store for paid games and paid content. So for example, like on Google Play, we can like put our game on sale and have strike through pricing, and it can be involved in promotions based on sales and stuff like that. The App Store still doesn't have that. And so we do have reason to believe that that they over at Apple are starting to understand that like the heavy push toward free games does kind of devalue people's perception of the platform. And that's something that they would like to kind of push against, but it is kind of by their own design, right? Like if you don't make tools for people who make paid games to do that kind of stuff, then it's just kind of
I think
the free games always have the edge.
I just don't think the incentives for the mobile market makers are strong enough for them to care.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, they make so much money off of those stores. It's just like, just leave it alone.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I think
like there was a time
it
where there
feels
was like
a
that
little stagnant, to be
3D
honest.
touch thing when they, people were trying to get us to do like 3D touch, like pressure sensitive. But again, the problem is like if not every device has the same capabilities and you build your game around that capability, then it doesn't work, right? So,
I think business
So
model wise, all of them, they both arrived at the same spot, right? And even when you bring in players like Netflix or whatever else with the subscription model thing, again, they're all kind of in the same spot. And what that means is that they've got, it's like, I don't know, I don't think it's going to change too much on the mobile side, I guess.
Yeah, I think 2 years ago I was excited about subscriptions on mobile because of their portfolios that they were building. The portfolios that they're all building now
Are the same.
make me there's nothing that feels like that meaningfully differentiates, and it also just feels like mobile stuff. It doesn't feel like they're trying to make like a gaming platform. And so I think we're going to continue to see on mobile that mobile is going to be treated by the market owners as not a games platform. They're going to be
even though it does make the most money, but
well, I mean, it will be, but it's a very narrow type of game.
a certain type of game.
Yeah. Games,
A mobile game platform. You know what I mean? Like it's
yeah,
not,
exactly. They'll continue to stay mobile games platforms, meaning it's going to be all about games that you touch a lot.
Easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything's about retention.
Light frequent touch, high long-term retention, high monetization capabilities,
Yeah.
That market's pretty safe. I mean, and you might have something, this isn't on the mobile side, but more on like, say, like the Apple side or the Google side, which like they're the mobile companies, right? Probably some more pushes toward various like augmented reality things and stuff like that. But again, like our take on most of those things is it's oftentimes a large company trying to find a platform that they can monopolize, right?
Yes.
So like if you're the first one to market with a real like pair of AR glasses.
This is what the iPhone did, right? This is what
that? Like the iPhone came out and everybody bought an iPhone, and then Apple just had like infinite money from that just all of a sudden, right? It's that like find a market that didn't exist and then capture it immediately and monopolize it, right? So you'll have that kind of stuff popping up, probably some AR stuff or some VR stuff or whatever. But I think that space is pretty worn out at this point. Like it keeps getting tried, and the use cases just aren't really that.
Well, it's one of those. No matter how successful it is, it's still a niche case. So it's hard to support a large market of people making stuff for it.
Is there anything that you think people are not paying enough attention to? You know what I mean? Like coming into this next year in terms of like a thing, like a little trend line.
I mean, I think Steam. I think you mean like in the game space or just like I think people are underappreciating what Steam is working towards. Yeah, and it may not even like come to fruition this year because I think they're very much in the slow burn kind of a camp.
They play the long game because they can. Yeah.
Yeah. But like, Switch 2 is coming out, and like when you look at that thing next to a Steam Deck, it's like they look the same, but by sort of like democratizing the hardware side of stuff, there will be a Steam Deck soon that works exactly like a Switch, that you can plug it into your TV.
There's going to be some
blah, blah, blah.
patent shit probably that they like. Probably the reason we don't already have that is probably because of patent problems, I would bet.
Yeah, there's going to be some stuff, but being able to have your Steam library and then have all these different options of devices to choose from of different power and different like weird mechanisms and stuff. I feel like it's going to be a dark horse that people just don't really see coming.
They're in the early phase of an outmaneuvering of everybody. That's what it's suddenly.
Which I guess really, all we're really saying is like continue to bet on Steam if you're going to bet on somebody, right?
Yep, but not in a real way because like they're not publicly traded, so you can't buy real stocks. You can't really bet on them.
But developing a game and launching on Steam is an enormous bet, right? That's So, and I think it is still, and it has been for years now. It's the one market that, it's gotten harder. Everything's gotten harder, right? From just a sheer number of games kind of a standpoint.
It's the only place you have to put in discoverability in the last 10 fucking years.
It's the only place that actually is really solving these problems, and where the market still exists, like as a market where people buy stuff, and like the whole, like they've managed to keep that market intact this whole time. It is one of the things just wonder about with because our whole strategy has basically been to say like the market changes so much all the time that the only sensible move is to make cross-platform games so that we can respond to whatever the fuck the market is doing, right? Whoever's winning right now, whatever the business model is, whatever, right?
Yeah, if it becomes less viable on other platforms, then you kind of have a doesn't make
Other
sense
ways
to
to
do
roll
that
the
anymore,
dice.
right?
Yeah, well, that's like that's the us doing that is the reason that we survived for the first 7 years of the studio, right? Through
I
leveling.
mean, even up to now,
Even up to now, yeah, because it's true, because of the Netflix stuff and all that, right? So, like from a business standpoint, that has been the right move still this whole time. But what I don't know is we're going to come into launch Crashlands 2 on mobile as a premium title.
Yeah, we'll see how it does. Because
Can you even sell a game on mobile?
Can it hang?
Is it even
We're gonna find
possible?
out. Yeah.
Because if it's actually, because it is what we actually were betting was that to have a premium title in the mobile space today, it has to be in a subscription service, and that's the only way to make money off of it. We're not launching into a subscription service though, and so then the question is like, is that scenario, because now all the subscription services are moving away towards premium style games, and so if we can't sell a premium game on mobile anymore, and we can't be in subscriptions anymore with the games we want to make,
Then why be on mobile?
then can we even maintain our cross-platform strategy after Crashlands 2? So like, that's gonna be the big open question I have in terms of like, what are we going to see? Should we? Yeah. Or then will it actually feel like it's continuing to decrease our risk by being able to be cross-platform and design cross-platform?
Or is it then suddenly increasing your risk because you're scaling
exactly.
costs?
Or will it feel like it's a constraint we don't want to, because it still could be if we want to operate under those constraints. But if we don't operate under the constraints of saying like, okay, we have to make subscription service compatible stuff to be on mobile. But if we don't want to do that, then it might be an all eggs in the Steam basket at that point, right?
Simplifies some dev stuff. So
I also think
simplify a lot of things if we
okay.
Another industry thing. I think this year, because of just the cooldown of shenanigans, I think Unity is going to pull some shenanigans this year again, because it will have been long enough by the time they did their most recent shenanigans where they were like, let's make everybody hate us and try to take all their money, right?
Yep.
Once you have no goodwill left, like you might as well keep doubling.
Yeah, just burn it down,
down.
So I feel like probably something's going to happen this year where they try to do some janky shit again.
That's true. It's been a little while.
It will have been long enough, people will have forgotten. Let it cool down, let the rage cool down, and then do some stuff. We got some other predictions, but we still need to do the names for the year. We're running out of time.
Let's do it.
So
let's go.
Should we? All right. So here's the deal. Every year needs a theme. Every year needs a name. Okay. So we're gonna talk through some options, kind of riff on those, but we're not gonna decide on anything because we're gonna put out a call for all of our listeners. You can go to podcast.bsketch.net. If you have opinions or suggestions that you think we should also consider, then just throw those into the podcast question form and then submit
you can
those.
submit them there. You could hop into the Discord with a podcast channel, so you could put your ideas and discuss them there if you want to. Just put it in a place where we'll see it.
Yeah. Okay. So here are some of our name options for 2025.
Again, the idea here is like this. It's a combination of like truthiness about how stuff's going to go. You're trying to guess, right? But it's like
also
manifesting.
aspirational.
Yeah. It's aspirational.
It's like we want to be realistic about what the year's going to be like and then strive, to do better. So we got kind of like a few in the same vein. It's this first batch. We got 20 out survive or just 20 survive, which
might be very real.
It might be aspirational, just
honestly,
be alive by January 1st, 2026.
Frankly, if you're in the games industry, it's not a bad one,
in whatever form that means, like as a company or as a person,
Because one read on this is that it's kind of like dark, right? But the other one is actually a strategic sort of concept of, and people have been saying this now for the past year plus in the games industry anyway, of like, you just got to find a way to survive.
Hold on.
Because if you can hold on to get through to weather the storms that were the problems, we don't know when they're going to end. But if you can hold on long enough to get through them, then you get to keep going. But if you can't, then it's likely you're now out, right?
Because that's where it's honest. Like, life is about survival. It's like everything's trying to eat you all the time.
But it is also about literally, sometimes metaphorically.
Right?
It's not even just about there being honest. It's about basically saying like it is an approach. Like survival is an approach,
Yes.
right? Of saying like, okay, what do we need to do to make it so that we're more likely to get through this, so that we're not being overly optimistic and all that kind of stuff.
So we're not taking unnecessary risks that probably won't pay off. You know, how are you like building up a safety net for yourself in case things go badly?
It's grounding, if not
It's a
perhaps
good-
pessimistic. You know, it's fine.
I don't think it's pessimistic. I think it's a good strategy that recognizes shit's hard, you know, and like the longer, like if you're surviving, then you keep going, right?
I think kind of the
So on the
opposite of
flip-
that. I don't know if it's on the list or if you're going to do it right now, but 2020 Thrive would be
2020 Thrive,
Yeah.
which is going above and beyond survival, and it's just saying like I'm doing so good, like everything's great, I feel good, I got no worries, I got everything I need, I got my people, I got my stuff.
2020 Thrive is great, you know, because it's like
2020
survival is
Thrive.
required to thrive, right? So you still got, of course, you have to be there. You have to be alive.
You can't not survive, but also thrive.
Well, that really brings us to Sir Thrive, right? Which is
Survival.
which is actually what our genre is for Crashlands and Crashlands 2 is Sir Thrival, right? Because
You
like
catch
it's,
on in the research groups, the market.
it's too hard to explain, but it's
It
got
has the mechanics of a survival game, but none of the problems of a survival game.
but it's also about like it's about because survival games, even if we did keep the mechanics, survival games are all about being hard. Actually, they're about the hard part of survival, right? Yeah. Versus Crashlands, which
It's about not dying.
it's about not dying rather than like finding joy while staying alive or whatever.
Literally, you got a game called Don't Starve, right?
Yeah.
It's not about what you are doing. It's about what you're trying to avoid happening.
You're not
to
celebrating
you.
the fact that you're like gardening and doing some cool shit, building housing and stuff, right? It's
not called Do Gardening. It's called Don't Starve.
Yeah.
you know?
So I think Sir Thrive is that nice mix of like it's acknowledging that we're in a survival situation, but the goal isn't just to survive while in that situation. The goal is to find a way to thrive within it.
It's trying to take both things into account. You know, how do I still be here, but also how do I have a good time? You know,
Yeah, because 2020 Thrive just sounds a little too optimistic given
Yeah, I
what
get
it
you.
looks like the shape of 2025 is going to be.
That's true.
yeah.
2020
Now, we also
Survive
got-
seems a little too much of a downer. 2020 Sir Thrive, also year of Crashlands 2, right?
That's true.
Yeah, that's true.
It is neatly aligned
We'll
with
see how it goes with the research groups. You know, how the podcast people think about it.
Yeah, so yeah,
Is it too
listeners are
weird
going to
if
need your
it's
feedback
not
on that one.
So we've also got 20 Feel Alive. Okay, which isn't about being alive, but it's about feeling things. You know, it's about getting out there and like really experiencing life. You know, doing stuff that you haven't done before. You know, do a little dance just for fun. You know, try
like-
some drugs that you've never tried.
Yeah.
Go on a bad trip.
It kind of sounds like it's on the edge of the whole like may you live in interesting times kind of a vibe.
That's true. You're like, I really feel a little too alive right now.
Yeah,
to be
it's like
honest.
little
Well, we're coming up on interesting times, so let's fucking go.
that's
you
true.
know, let's just.
I think it's a
own it.
guarantee, unfortunately, you know, for where we're headed. So
I would love
You're
some
gonna
more
feel
times.
something
you're going to feel
in this year.
probably a little much. Yeah.
It will never end. All right. So another option is 20 Hyperdrive,
Ooh.
which I like.
Is this to
So-
invent hyperdrive travel? Is that the
Yeah, let's just get the fuck out of here.
Get the fuck
let's just get
actually,
away
yeah,
as fast as
20
possible.
hyperdrive, let's fucking go.
Yeah, that's like
20
pretty good. I like
Hyperdrive,
that.
let's fucking go.
That's good.
Yeah, it's
for that.
figure out where you're going
And
And
get
just
orient-
fucking.
orient yourself and
Ew.
full send. Just I saw a video. You guys probably seen this video a while back of like this goat that's running down a mountain.
Oh, yeah.
Speed.
It's like it's running so fast that
It's
you could
essentially
just
falling.
say it's falling, but it's very controlled. And that fucker must be going like 80 miles an hour. There's just like a plume of snow just blasting up behind it.
Amazing.
There's somebody just standing on like a rock, kind of like looking over at the mountain. And up in the distance, you just see this cloud, you know, like up toward the top of the mountain. I was like, what is that? Is it an avalanche or something? And it's just one goat. just blasting down this mountain faster than a fucking Lamborghini.
related
I'm like,
to
you know,
that, but a
amazing.
little bit
Respect to that goat.
but a little bit of a tangent. Did you guys see the new Superman trailer?
Mhm.
because it has the super dog in it, and they have a similar moment to that where you just see off in the distance this huge plume of it's like an Antarctica or something, this huge plume of like snow and this little figure coming up. You're like, the fuck is that? And then it's this little dog because he's a super dog, so he's just fucking blasting over there at full speed.
Yeah. What I love about it is, you don't think about a goat as going the speed of a peregrine falcon, but it can. It will under the right circumstances, And like sometimes you just gotta realize your potential and just go into hyperdrive, full send, let's fucking go.
Yeah, I like it. I do like that one.
It's good.
So go fast. But not any like go fast and break things mode. Just
we've had enough of
go
that.
Fast.
Please.
Yeah, we're done with that. Let's not do that anymore. Go fast and be responsible. Speaking of which, here's an option. 20 arrive alive. Don't drink and drive.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay?
That's good.
That's just
if you are hyper driving, do not be intoxicated while hyper driving. It's very dangerous.
I forgot that Arrive Alive was one of the
wasn't that the campaign
slogans. That is an intense fucking slogan.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, it doesn't even make sense because as if like you would die, but somehow still get to your destination, like arrive dead. Like, well, you're going to go somewhere else.
If the same vibe is like, if you die, I'm going to kill you. It's got the same.
Well, you know that like Jim Carrey scene where he's driving that Jeep and parks it in Ace Ventura? I feel like that's one of those like you could arrive dead in that. Like that.
Yeah. You have to be very crafty about it, Oh, speaking of dying. Okay. Apparently, there's that movie Craven the Hunter that just came out recently, which is made by the Morbius and Madam Web people.
So it's very medium, like exceptional.
Apparently, there's a line in this movie that I'm going to paraphrase it, but it's basically something along the lines of like, and that's when she died, and I never saw her again. Which, true, but
you didn't need to say that.
Redundant.
Weird.
So 20 arrive alive. Don't drink and drive.
Generally,
get there safely.
Yeah, it's good advice, no matter what the slogan turns out to be.
Yeah, and I feel like 20 arrive alive kind of goes in line with like 20 survive. It's like arrive where, just wherever you're trying to go, but just don't die on the way. Stay alive. And also 20 dumpster dive. Which that's more of like if things get real bad.
There's always dumpsters.
There's always that option.
Yep.
So,
but it's also about one person's trash, another person's treasure, kind of a deal.
Yeah.
It's about being scrappy.
Being thrifty.
Be a raccoon.
Finding the good stuff in things that other people have overlooked.
Oh yeah.
Find those hidden gems. 20 dumpster dive. But also don't eat expired yogurt and stuff.
Yeah,
that's just, you got to be discerning about it.
Please stop doing it this year.
Stop doing that. Yeah. 20 test drive. I don't know about that one.
I don't really want to test drive this year. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't want to drive at all. If I can help it.
A whole year.
I guess it could be about like trying something out that you're maybe on the fence about just to see.
Give it a spin.
Like give it a try. Give it a spin. You never know,
Yeah.
You got to experience it to find out,
it's a whole year, though.
It's a lot of test driving.
That's
too long of a test.
A whole year of trying new things.
You have that sense where you're like, this year's really testing me. I feel like you're just asking for it with that kind of a, naming.
Yeah. But maybe you flip it around. Maybe you test the year,
Oh, there you go.
You put that year on the back foot.
Yep.
It's trying to fuck with you. Well, send it back.
Not today.
We also got 20 line drive, which I believe is
when you hit, basically.
That's when you like smack the baseball so hard straight down the line, like where the foul line is, right? That's like very hard to get, and very hard to send back. It's not a foul though; it's still in.
Yeah,
right. So
just nailing it.
Yeah,
so it's kind of like same as this year. So we'll skip that one.
Yeah. Also, you got to know some sports because I thought that was a golf term. So.
It might also be a golf.
No, that's pile driver. That's a different.
No, I think that's a wrestling.
20 pile drive.
Hey, can you hand me the pile driver? I'm in the sand pit. We also got 20 high five, which is, I think that was just like,
it's kind of nice.
Be with people.
Yeah.
See people in person, human to human.
Yep. Yeah. Mask up while you're at it because
of the bird flu.
Because of all the diseases.
Because, there's something that, you can do a lot of things remotely. You can't high five.
That's true.
I think it speaks to, something that, that social connection is pretty important. So
as long as it's instantaneous and at high velocity, that's only when it's important. Yeah.
If a high five didn't hurt, you did it wrong.
That's true.
We We've also got 20 connive. Put together some schemes, make some plans.
Yeah.
Again,
Be a
I just feel like
sneaky
there are
fuck.
too many schemes.
Sneaky motherfucker. Yeah, you're true. We probably don't.
I don't
need
want
to
it.
be
I don't
doing
want
this.
anyone to add any more schemes.
Yeah, but like,
But
sometimes you
you
gotta-
need a scheme.
yeah, sometimes you got to have your own
your
schemes
scheme
to counter.
becomes my being scammed. You know, so it's just.
Unless you got your own schemes.
But then I'm just scamming somebody else.
Like there's those videos of that guy who gets called by scammers and then he tracks down their IP and then figures out how to fuck with them by like showing them videos of themselves through their own CCTV and making them shit themselves. Like
Be that guy.
be like that guy,
Yeah,
you know?
That's pretty
They're
conniving.
trying to get him, he gets them. You
Yeah,
know?
I feel like that's not conniving though. I feel like that's something else. That's like vengeance. That's
Yeah,
like
conniving is
20
just sort of
connive, I think it's
underhanded.
just be crafty.
it's like
be
a
smart.
do you know who I am? You know, kind of a.
It's a
You
sneaky
plans within plans.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, we'll put a pin in that one.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not doing.
All right, we got one more, which is 20 dead or alive, which
Kind of in the same theme. There's a lot of, for whatever reason, the year's
the
got
problem
a lot of
is
rhymes.
5 doesn't rhyme with too many things. You know what I mean?
Okay, what about 2020 hand jive? I don't actually know what that is, but I just remember it
Or
vaguely from some
It's
old
a dance maneuver.
or just jive.
just jive.
2020 jive. Just fucking.
2020 drive. Get along with
2020 vibe. Just fucking just chilling. Just
2020
chill.
vibe. Just chilling, sort of backwards.
Just misspelling 5.
Just
Bye. Bye.
It's like vibe, but vibe. You know?
2020 bye. What's
Yeah.
that?
Is a vibe when like the vibes are wrong? Like
Oh, no, I'm
things
saying,
are
like-
off.
Oh, yeah. I was saying like bye. And then just, you have to say the V
Just
sound.
finish it up,
There's
yeah.
got to be a
Bye.
in there.
You know?
Yeah, we don't really have like 2020 strive, which is just going for something big. It's kind of like thrive. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
they kind of have a duality in them for whatever reason. It's all like really living or really almost dying sort of a vibe. So I guess I don't know what
Yeah.
that means.
20 dead or alive is kind of like, get yourself on a wanted poster,
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Shake up the system. That's it's trendy these days.
It is
People
trendy.
are
Yeah,
doing it.
that's-
People
that
are
is-
doing it.
That is going to be a theme this year. I think.
So
gonna
hot
be
right
something.
now. Yeah. So
Yeah.
hot right now.
Getting on wanted posters, very hot right now. 20 dead or alive. They'll never take me. Dead or alive.
All right. Yeah. Well, I'm curious to hear what people think of these. Which
We
one's
got
your
some
favorites?
options. Let it percolate.
Let it
Send us through the Discord or through the podcast page, through podcast.bscotch.net. Which ones you like, which ones you hate, suggestions of your own. And we will figure out what this year is going to be like. So that's all the time we have for this episode. We'd like to thank our producers, Fat Bard and Sampa DaCosta, for putting the podcast together. And thanks to our community moderators who keep our Discord running. To get more involved in the Butterscotch community, just go to podcast.bscotch.net, where we have links to the Discord, a way for you to donate, and links to the podcast archives. And if you haven't yet, head on over to Steam and give Crashlands 2 a wish list. It'll help boost the game up the charts and help it have a successful launch, and we'd appreciate it. So thank you all for listening. We'll see you next week.
Goodbye.